Rehabilitative prisons are prisons that are meant to rehabilitate instead of punish. The best example people point to for this concept is Norway, which is prisons that look more like a hotel than the prisons that we are used to seeing in the media or in the United States. While in theory this may look questionable to a lot of people, today I will be making the case as to why rehabilitative prisons are a good thing and why America and the rest of the world should implement this exact same model. While some may be skeptical on how these prisons will work in practice, these prisons are way more effective at stopping reoffense, which is what we should be looking at when it comes to the effectiveness of prisons, since the entire point of prison is to punish you for a crime so you do not do it again. In Norway, the reoffense rate for crimes is 20%, the lowest in the world. Contrast that with the United States of America with a 66% reoffense rate, one of the highest in the world. In addition, according to a meta-analysis of 58 studies done by RAND, found that inmates who participated in correctional education programs had a 43% lower odds of recidivating compared to inmates who did not, thus indicating that correctional education is an effective strategy for reducing recidivism, and that the odds of obtaining employment post-release among inmates who participated in correctional education was 13% higher than for those who did not. There is also a report from the United States Department of Justice which includes recommendations for the best ways in which recidivism can be reduced. These recommendations included things such as building school districts within the prison system, prioritizing mental health of prisoners, and equipping prisoners with appropriate information and resources as they return to the community. This is not the full list, but nearly all recommendations are prisoner-oriented and meant to rehabilitate. No recommendations include harsher sentences or any methods of punitive justice as a way to reduce recidivism. One case study that we can look at to see the effectiveness of punitive versus rehabilitative prisons is Brazil. Despite being one of the most violent countries in the world, they have some rehabilitative prisons where prisoners have more freedom and treated more humanely, and where recidivism in these countries has been recorded at as low as under 10%. These countries are run by the Association for the Protection and Assistance of the Convicted, also known as APAC, which is a faith-based non-profit NGO whose goal is to provide better conditions to prisoners via a rehabilitative philosophy. When it comes to juveniles, rehabilitation is also very effective. According to Crime and Delinquency, juveniles who participated in a restorative justice program were less likely to reoffend than juveniles in a comparison group. Another study by Youth Violence and Juvenile Justice affirms this, saying that restorative justice shows positive effects for juveniles. According to the RAND study I had previously cited, rehabilitative prisons are also more cost-effective. The study says the following quote, "Our cost analysis showed that correctional education is highly cost-effective for incarcerated adults. For every dollar spent on correctional education, $5 are saved on 3-year reincarceration costs." This makes perfect sense. Think about it. Needing to feed, house, clothe, and treat someone medically for the rest of their life while they are in prison will obviously be more costly compared to rehabilitating someone for a lesser period of time, then boosting their social mobility via educational opportunities, getting them a job, and taxing that person so you can potentially regain a lot of that money back that you did spend on that person in the process. A lot of people may ask the question, what about the victims of these crimes? Which is an understandable concern. These people may feel very emotional and angry depending on the situation, and want the offender to suffer for the crime they committed against them or a loved one. The answer to this question is that, in reality, rehabilitative justice can actually improve the satisfaction of both the victim and the offender, and also improve offender compliance with restitution, according to a meta-analysis of 28 different studies done by authors Jeff Latimer, Craig Dowden, and Danielle Moise. In addition, the Alliance for Safety and Justice, a victim-focused criminal justice reform organization, conducted a survey of violent crime victims and found that 61% of crime victims support shorter prison sentences and more spending on prevention and rehabilitation to long prison sentences, and that the vast majority of victims also prefer investments in education, mental health treatment, drug treatment, and job training to more spending on prisons and jails. Another concern that gets brought up is whether or not you can rehabilitate the worst of the worst criminals, such as murderers and rapists. This is another understandable concern, but it is entirely possible to rehabilitate these kinds of people. According to a study by the International Journal of Law and Psychiatry, the reoffense rate for rapists was only slightly above average at 21.7% in Norway, indicating that it is entirely possible to rehabilitate rapists and that rehabilitation decreases the number of rapists relative to a punitive system. On to the discussion of murderers. Norway has the 6th lowest murder rate in the entire world. with 0.52 murders per 100,000 people. Norway only had 25 murders the entire year in 2018. This indicates, at least to a considerable extent, that the prisons in Norway have been able to successfully rehabilitate and integrate murderers back into society without them reoffending again. In this video, I reviewed the effectiveness and cost-effectiveness that rehabilitation has, the opinions of the victims of violent crime on rehabilitation, and answered the question, can you rehabilitate even the worst of criminals? Rehabilitation, in my opinion, is a complete no-brainer, and it should become a more talked about subject in the US and around the world. It just goes to show you that when you treat people like criminals in prison, they stay criminals. One thing that I would like everyone to check out is a documentary series called Inside the World's Toughest Prisons, where in episode 4 of season 3 they visit a Norwegian prison and document their experiences. Watching that will help give an insight as to what these prisons look like and how prisoners are treated. I hope you all enjoyed this video and stay tuned for my next upload.